Hi guys, I'm Gasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our Coffee Times Talking Horror Books. Today I bring you my August wrap up. I'm not too excited about it because I failed miserably at reading everything that I had on my TBR pile. I didn't read much at all, but it is the way that it is.
It's coffee time.
So the month of August, I was really busy leaving things ready at work before my holidays. I finally got to travel back to Spain to visit my parents, and honestly, I ended up disconnecting from basically everything. I barely was in social media or internet, only if somebody sent me a message. I didn't even go anywhere. I basically just was home with my parents. We were playing cards, going to the beach, and I also didn't find much time for reading because I was spending every second that I could with my parents trying to catch up for all the months that we were not able to see each other in real life. And honestly, I feel like that was also the right decision. I think my mind, everything needed a break from life and work and all of it. And now I am excited to keep my reading journey and read a lot of horror in this fall and Halloween season, but I still managed to read a couple of books in August, so I'm here to talk to you about them. I ended up reading 7 books, but one of them was a DNF, which is something that I don't always do, but I'm still gonna let you know about my DNF. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. We like to rate books here with a Coffee Max, and we always start with the lowest rating to the highest. My DNF was Odd and Ed by Shanti Leonard. I picked this one up because it sounded like a really interesting and different take on a coming-of-age story, and it promised to be something that was going to have a little bit of comedy, but also a weird story about 2 kids and a cemetery and something that happened to them. At the beginning of our story, we do get introduced to Odd and Ed, and we get to know them and how long they've been friends, the kind of friendship that they have, and that is until they make a discovery that is going to change their lives forever. And at the beginning of the book, I was really engaged because the story was unique, it was surprising and entertaining, and at the beginning I was really interested to know what was going to happen next, especially after the main event, the main discovery. I just don't want to spoil it for you guys. However, I believe it was around 40% of the book, I'm not really sure when, but something happened that involved animal cruelty. And that moment I started to question if I wanted to keep reading the book, because it was one of those, for me, my personal opinion, these tasteful portrayals of animal suffering and animal murder that were unnecessary and unneeded to tell the story. There are many ways that you can address a story like this. There are many ways that you can even mention animal cruelty, but you don't have to be so graphic and so distasteful. And honestly, I had trouble reading through that. I made it past that, but the interest that I had on the mystery and everything started to slow down as well, to the point where I decided that I no longer wanted to keep on reading. As I've mentioned, this story was really intriguing and I did like the writing when I started the book, but at some point it just started to be interesting enough for me to keep on reading. I kind of lost that excitement that I had at the beginning, and I decided that it was for the best to just put it down. And that is also why I'm not giving it a rating. I don't rate books or add them to my Goodreads goal if I don't finish them. Digest 10 short horror stories by convicted and plausible people eaters. Now this was a very unique compilation of short horror stories because they all involve Cannibals. This is a collection of short horror stories that are written by people that have indulged in cannibalism, and there is in every chapter a presentation of the cannibal and basically what they were convicted for, or something that they did when it comes to eating people. And after that introduction, you get their story. And the stories that they submitted were so unique and weird. I believe if you're someone that is looking for short stories that are kind of weird fiction, that are a little bit supernatural at times, that are a little bit trippy at times, this might be something for you. But of course you also need to read through the cannibalistic experiences of these people, which might not be something that everybody is up for. I totally get it. The stories, the introduction to the authors are gruesome and they are being described with detail. Tia Lugo Speaks No Evil by Daniel Vigilante, and this middle grade is going to be your perfect cozy mystery thriller. So if you're looking for something like this for fall or Halloween season, this might be for you. This is especially for people that like kind of creepy stories but are not there yet to go to the YA or the adult section. However, as an adult, I've really enjoyed this one. We follow a 13-year-old that one night wakes up just in the right moment because through her bedroom window she sees a murder take place. After that, she finds herself unable to tell the police or her parents what she saw because she knows that the killer has seen her and now is gonna come for her. Despite this being a middle grade, I have to say that they did such a good job at building the suspense and tension in the story. And this book has something that I always love, which is relatable characters, because they were so real. They felt so real to me that I was really engaged with the story. And we also have some Hispanic representation that I also appreciated. And it is a book that is going to show us the values not just of friendship but also of a family, which is something that I always love to see in middle grade books. Of course, this being a middle grade thriller mystery, there are some twists and turns that you're going to see coming as an adult. However, I still think that this is a perfect cozy read for the winter season. Have You Seen Me by Alexandra Weiss. This was such a solid YA mystery thriller about a serial killer on the loose in an investigation that takes place by students. So if you love what you're hearing, this is going to be perfect for you. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was better than other mystery thrillers that are YA that I have read in the past. Waverly High has had some history when it comes to girls gone missing. Many years ago, 3 girls went missing. A couple of years ago, another one went missing. And just now, Lindsay has also gone missing. And that is at the same time that Audrey, an old student, takes a position as a new teacher at this prestigious school. When Aubrey starts her new job as a teacher, she realizes that her students are really worried about Lindsay that has just disappeared, and they kind of convince her to help them investigate and look for her. However, one by one, the students that are trying to figure out what happened to Lindsay are going to start appearing dead, and Aubrey is going to confirm one of her greatest fears, and that is that there is still a serial killer on the loose. This is a gripping whodunit story that is going to take you also through some history and background of the school, that it also includes a detective and students trying to figure out what happened to their friend. I absolutely love this story because it was a mystery thriller that actually kept me really engaged all the time and kept me guessing who was the responsible person, the one behind the murders. My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This was Such an amazing, new, interesting take on the trope of a final girl, and also has amazing Native American representation. So needless to say, I really enjoyed this book. I kind of was expecting to enjoy it, and now those expectations have been confirmed. I really approve of this book. If you are a fan of horror movies, specifically slashers, you're going to absolutely have a blast with this book. Between the main chapters, we get some inserts of one-on-one slashers, kind of for beginners, where you get so much information about where the slashers came from. They mention the giallo Italian films, and they go through some of our classic beloved slasher horror movies. So I love those inserts. Those were my favorite parts to read in the book, and I feel like Stephen Graham Jones could do just a book based on that, on one-on-one slasher for beginners. I would buy that like yesterday. But I also have to warn you guys, if you have not watched most of those movie slasher, the classic ones, he's gonna spoil for you a lot of things. There's a lot of explanation that involves spoiling endings and who is the killer in the movies and all of that, so be aware that you might get spoiled if you want to watch those movies. Now, we have already established that Stephen Graham Jones is an expert on slashers, and that is why he was able to deliver such an exciting and fresh new take and twist on the final girl trope. And he also managed to put in those chapters and merge together with the story a lot of Native American representation, a lot of the cultural aspects of it, and I love to read that. It also gave us some social commentary. It's all merged into the story so well that I just had a great time with this book. As we approach the final chapters, it's going to get bloodier and gorier. It's basically following the same pattern of a slasher movie in a way, but of course he's giving a different twist and take to the final girl trope. There's not much I can tell you because I don't want to spoil things, but I will also let you know that I absolutely love what he did with the character of Jade, because I love when I have a main character that sometimes I cannot place, a main character that is very polarizing and that at times you don't know if they're good or if they're evil. And I felt like I was so invested also in discovering Jade's story, her background, and all of those things, why she loved horror movies so much, and why she was like so obsessed with slashers. And in a way, I could also see myself in some of the things that she was explaining. So I just had, all in all, a good time. The Strange Thing We Become and Other Dark Tales by Eric LaRocca. This is a book that just was published on the 1st of September, and it is a compilation of short horror stories that has LGBTQ plus characters, and it's amazing representation that I love to see in horror. I did a reading blog of it, so if you want to hear my thoughts as I was reading the book, I will link it for you guys. But what I can tell you, what you can expect from Eric LaRocca's stories, they are always very unique, very different. The writing is very poetic. They are so beautifully written, and at times they might seem a little bit even supernatural. However, they're all really based on real fears of real life, of something that could happen to anybody, anytime. And that is part of why his stories are so frightening. These are the type of stories that really creep under your skin. These are stories about friendship, stories about family, about how far you would go in order to protect or save a loved one, the things that you would find yourself doing or even considering. It is just, I just love to see how he brings these characters to life, and the way that, especially in this compilation, he combines horror and love and grief. It's just fantastic. And last but not least is the first book that I actually read in the month of August, and I became obsessed with it. It is now definitely a new favorite, and that is The Perfect Victim by David Sodergren. And this is the author that wrote The Forgotten Island, that I absolutely loved. and this is his new novel published this year. This was so brutal, so disturbing, so just keep that in mind if you're gonna go into it. You kind of can think a little bit of Dollhouse by John Hunt. It's, you know, it will give you an idea if you read that book of what you can expect here. I read this book in 2 days, which is something that has not happened that often this year. I just could not put it down. I had other things to do and I just ignored all of those things because I just needed to know. Like, the level of tension and like the level of suspense that you get in this novel is insane. And it is a novel that also has a kind of a character that could be considered a final girl. That is also why I included this book in one of my last videos where I talked about final girls. It's going to be a book perfect for people that like fictional true crime and also enjoy some gore and really brutal moments, but I think it's going to be perhaps too much for people that don't like gore at all or really bloody, disturbing scenes, because there's some scenes that are described in this book to the detail that were so gross. Like, even for me, they were really gross. The title is telling us what this book is about. It is about the perfect victim, in this case for a kidnapping, and that is Katie. She is the daughter of a famous Hollywood producer, and there is some people that decide that if they kidnap her, then they can ask for a big ransom and get rich. So Katie is walking home one day from school when she meets her kidnappers, and that is where her nightmare is going to begin. At the beginning, Katie is kind of still positive about it. She thinks, okay, my dad is gonna pay the ransom, these people are gonna let me go, and then, you know, this nightmare will end. But soon she will realize that her nightmare actually has just begun and things are not going to go quite as planned. The book was so intense. That was the reason why I couldn't put it down. I needed to turn the page. I needed to go to the next chapter. Like, every chapter ended in a way that I just needed to keep going. I just could not stop. And it's also really interesting to see Katie as a character and her psychological decline when she starts to realize what's going to happen to her, and when she starts to realize that she might not make it out of there alive, and then she is not as chipper as she was at the beginning. So I love to see the transition of a character and how she realizes that either she tries to escape or that's going to be the end for her. I would say if you're able to take a book that is really brutal, disturbing, really gory, and a book that is going to describe certain things to the detail, please pick it up, because it was such an amazing story. Definitely recommend you guys to pick it up. It's probably gonna make it to my favorites of 2021 because this was a book that got me engaged from page 1 to the very last page. Alright guys, so there you have it. These are the books that I did manage to read in the month of August. Not much, but it is okay. I really needed time to unwind, to be with my family, to just relax, and now I'm back, so I'm hopefully going to be able to read more in the month of September and keep going, because I really want to read as much as possible for the Halloween and spooky season. Let me know down below what you thought about the books that I have read. Also, let me know what is the best book you read in the month of August. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thank you so much as always for all your support. Thank you for watching. Please give the video a big thumbs up, and I hope to see you all guys as always in our next coffee time. Bye.